All right, let's talk about the Los Angeles Chargers. Look, this Chargers team obviously coming off a tough loss and dealing with some injuries, but as they head into a massive matchup this weekend, the Chargers coaches, they're making a really smart move that I think puts them in a good position to win and kind of batten down the hatches. I think Chargers fans will appreciate this news, and we got some interesting data to support it on the other side. But first, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, the Los Angeles Chargers obviously lost a tough one last week, but more importantly, they lost another offensive lineman, the great tackle, all to an injury issue. Obviously, wish him a speedy recovery, but the Chargers, again, it's a National Football League, next man up. You got another game next Sunday. How the heck are you going to respond? And based on some recent reporting, it's clear the Chargers are doing a little reshuffling here, but they've got some guys potentially coming back, and they're making a key move at one of those tackle positions. Let's get into the reporting right here, then we'll get into the data on the other side. This is courtesy of Daniel Pomper. We got two posts here, and I'll get to the first, and I'll get to his response to it. So his first post was, Mekhi Becton is back at practice in a yellow non-contact jersey. Players on concussion protocol are allowed to practice in a limited capacity as part of a standard return to play procedures. It's not a guarantee that Becton will play, but it's a step in the right direction, right? There's multiple gates, multiple reviews. It's a complex process. It's really hard to know exactly because it's one of those things where if you can go like perfect through 9 out of the 10 steps or how many steps are, and if the last step it's not 100% perfect, you don't get in, or you can fail step 1, right? And then it just is what it is. You just really don't know, but it looks like Becton at the very least is trending in a good direction. He's still working his way through the protocol, so good news on that front. But I think the response to this post I think is very interesting. So Popper went on to say, Becton was working off to the side during individual drills. The starting offensive line for that period was left tackle Jamari Salyer, left guard Zion Johnson, center Bradley Bozeman, right guard Foster Sarell, and then right tackle Trey Pipkins. I'm going to focus on the left tackle spot because obviously that is the most important spot on this Chargers offensive line. Right-handed quarterback Herbert, right, obviously incredibly important position. Herbert and this Chargers offense is used to having two quality players, right? Obviously Slater and then Alt. To have a Salyer put in that position is a big responsibility and a big challenge. And I think he's more than capable and more than up to the task. When he was coming out of college at Georgia, I think we were really high on him as the channel and felt the Chargers got a steal because he was one of these guys that ugly body type, right? Not great measurables, and at the time, not the prettiest tape. But he was just a good old-fashioned football player who played against tough competition and did very, very well in a bunch of different environments against really good players and big-time moments, right? That was Salyer, and we felt at the time on this channel that that meant he could easily move up to the National Football League and be a contributor. Well, Salyer has done that, and he's done it, interestingly enough, at a position that's kind of up to the top of the list right now. Let's go into this next graphic here. That's courtesy of PFF, and this is just a screenshot here of Salyer's snap counts so far in his career. The top row right there, that is the 2025 season. The next row is 2024. The Robolat is 2023, and the Robolat is below that, is 2022. And lo and behold, he has 1,000 snaps in 2022 at the left tackle position. In fact, he has had over 1,000 snaps, 1,085 to be exact, at left tackle so far in his entire career. That's the second most out of any position. For a lot of people that aren't in the know, and I know Chargers fans, you know this, Salyer was widely considered to be a quality guard prospect, right? He was a guard coming out of college, a versatile guy who could line up in a bunch of different positions, but he was definitely going to be a guard. That's what he was going to grow into. We talked about it on this channel at the time that we weren't quite so sure. We thought he had a chance to be long-term the right tackle in this Chargers offense. That was obviously before the selection of Alt. And then Alt was selected, and then, of course, the things change, and he moves to guard like we saw. And he's been a good quality depth piece, and, he's had to battle through some injuries and things like that. But he's been a good, solid player, I think, for the most part of his career. But now's a chance where he has to go back to left tackle, and obviously he's got a lot of experience there. And that's great, and that's important. That level of experience at a key position in the National Football League, that's something you can't replicate. But here's the very interesting thing, or I should say even more interesting outside of experience, is that the fact that based on some Pro Football Focus PFF grades, he was pretty darn good. Let's go into our next screenshot here again. This was his offensive grades as a left tackle in 2022. So you can see the snap counts there on the left, the run blocking snaps and the pass blocking snaps, right? Equals over 1,000, as you can see, 333 plus 696. You get that over 1,000 number right there. You look at across the board, the offensive overall grade 69.8. For anyone who's not familiar with PFF grades, the way it works is, 65 is considered, competent, decent, okay. So 69, 70 would be considered solid, right? 75 is considered really solid, good player, really good player. 85 is like Pro Bowl stuff, and like 90, 95 is like all pro, like player of the year, like Hall of Fame kind of stuff, right? That's generally how it shakes out. So you can see in run blocking, 53.5. I mean, that's not so good, but his pass protection, pass blocking as a left tackle, 76.4. Again, that's really good. Really good stepping into the NFL scene. In fact, his very first game, he graded on as a 90.4, and he had multiple games here where he graded out well, had a few duds, but look, it's a long season, it's going to happen. But you can see, looking at his pass blocking grade, yeah, he had the 90 and the 35, right? That's a great and a yikes. But, there's a saying I like. I think I took this from Colin Coward, I think, over at Fox Sports 1, who has some good takes, has some not so good, but he's got some good ones. He has a saying, though, that you take away the best and the worst, and that's who you are as a player. Well, if you take away the best and the worst and start going here with Salyer, you notice he's 70s, low 80s, right? One more dud, but 70, 70, 70, 70. Like, it's a lot. The vast majority of it is in the mid to high 70s, right? And what did I say just a second ago? Mid to high 70s is above average. That's a very good starter. So right now the Chargers have a very good starter at left tackle in Salyer. Now, obviously, he's not the long-term answer, and it stresses the depth, and Becton coming back from injury will be critically important. But there's a lot of people that I've been hearing in the media, and a lot of people that I'm talking to in terms of different accounts and social media and things like that, is what do the Chargers need to do? Should they be active on the trade block? Should they be looking for more tackles and more offensive, just more offensive tackles depth? Because right now they're in trouble. They lost two guys. They're at the top of the division, but things can change quickly. What should they do? They need to trade. They need to get a veteran now. And I say not so. The Chargers have done a great job with Ortiz and Harbaugh building out a roster full of players that can line up and play anywhere. Versatile football players. Salyer, even Alt himself, switching positions in terms of size of the offensive line. In fact, if you look at the Chargers, how they play, even standard positions like running back, right? They'll have Omari and Hampton will spend one snap, for example, in the shotgun next to Herbert. The next snap, they'll be in a two tight end with a fullback formation right behind in an old school line and run power concepts, right? The Chargers, much like the Patriots of old and much like the Chiefs in recent memory and a lot of other really good teams, play fundamentally sound team, almost position analogous football. You're not a third down back. You're not a pass protecting left guard. You're not only a left guard. You're a football player. You're an offensive lineman. You can play everywhere. And that's the approach the Chargers have taken for the vast majority of their positions. And I don't think that's going to change. You see that with their scheme, right? Like I mentioned a second ago, they can go five wide. They can go shotgun and spread. They can also run the football out of shotgun and run it down your throat. They can also line up in an I formation with two or three tight ends and run it down your throat. They can also line up in an I formation and drop back pass. They can play action in every formation, right? They can run trick plays, right? They can go with a bunch of tight ends and spread them out. They can go a bunch of tight ends and cluster together, right? They can do a lot of different things. That's part of Roman. That's part of Harbaugh. That's what they like to do. And I think that ability to be just different in everything they do, I think gives them a key advantage when it comes to injuries. They have an opportunity now to take advantage of what certain players do better in certain situations, like Salyer, again, a little bit better in pass protection. Maybe you do a little bit more spread in shotgun while you wait for Alt to return, right? That's certainly very possible. Or if you think it'll be easier for maybe the other young offensive lineman or the interior offensive lineman, that maybe have to be shuffled around, maybe you go more power formation and just let Salyer figure it out at left tackle in certain situations and as run blocker, right? There's a lot of things you can do. You have a lot of different levers to pull. And this is why the Chargers, how they built their roster, and this is kind of the long point I'm kind of rambling to, what the Chargers have done over the past few seasons. A lot of people were criticizing them when they drafted Joe Alt, for example, and a lot of the moves they made, right? They drafted Omari and Hampton. People are like, why? And as the injuries have showed up and we've looked at this team, we're starting to see that's why. They have depth. They have talent. They have multiple different levers and different positions different players can play. They're versatile, right? That's the thing that separates the good players and the good teams from the bad players on the bad teams. Can you play multiple positions? Chris Collinsworth actually said it recently, very good, and I think it's a smart point. He said, backup players actually win you playoff games, right? The guys subbing in for the injuries, the swing tackle, the third corner, right? The backup running back. As guys get beat up, can you have guys that are ready and able to step up and maybe change new positions or playing a position they haven't played in a few years? And the Chargers very astutely have built themselves a quality roster that will allow them to handle all these situations. I know there's a little bit of doom and gloom right now with the Chargers, and I get it. I understand Slater just sucked. Losing him and the Alt injury doesn't make you feel any better about it. But the reality is, Ortiz, Harbaugh, they built this team just for this, right? They built a team with quality depth, and I'm excited to see what they do, not just this weekend, but going forward as well. All right, we got more to break down when it comes to the Chargers, but first, Chargers fans, in the comment section below. Like I alluded to, big matchup this weekend. I think it's one of the more interesting games in the entire Sunday slate. So now's your chance in the comment section below to give us your prediction of how you think this game will shake out. Do you think the Chargers come with a big win? You think it's a close game? Whatever. Put your thoughts in the comment section below. Let us know however you think it's going to go, and give us your prediction. Throw a final score in there as well with the Chargers-Washington game this weekend. Again, put it in the comment section below. All right, but without further ado, let's get into that game here to kind of put a bow on today's today's Chargers video. And this is per ESPN and their analytics here. You can see the matchup predictor. Right now, the Chargers are set up with a 57.6% chance to win. The Washington Commanders with only 42.0% chance to win. That's a pretty hefty edge for Los Angeles when it's all said and done. Obviously, a very small percentage chance to tie. I mean, after last Sunday night, a lot of people may have forgotten that ties are a thing in the National Football League. They certainly are, and they do have a chance of happening. But let's go look at the odds there at the bottom. I think that's pretty interesting there. And they have basically remained unchanged, right? The Chargers opened up as a 2.5-point home favorite, and that has remained unchanged. The over-under hasn't shifted at all. There's been some news that Jayden Daniels will play for Washington. So you would think that would shift in Washington's favor, but it's kept it pretty steady. Even the news of lineup changes across the board for either of the two teams, the odds have not shifted at all. So there's a couple ways to look at it. I think the first and foremost is that the odds makers and the sports books, they trust two people. They trust Harbaugh and they trust Herbert more than they trust Daniels and trust Dan Quinn for Washington, right? Especially at Los Angeles. Now, we'll have to see, of course, what happens Sunday afternoon, but I think that's the right move to make. Harbaugh has proven himself to be an adaptable coach time and time again, and Herbert is still one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. I think this is a game the Chargers, it's not going to be pretty. There's going to be some ugliness to it, right? But I think this is a game where the Chargers, push comes to shove, exert their will, believe it or not, physically with their offensive line and their running game. They turn the ball over to Amari and Hampton, and I think he pounds Washington. I think it's going to be a close, kind of a high-scoring game in the fourth quarter, and I think the Chargers kind of pull away late. I could see this being maybe a 24-21 game, 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The Chargers get the football, and they go on like a 13-play, 80-yard drive that kills 7-8 minutes on the clock, and they punch it in for a score, and that basically ices the game. That's how I feel this going for the Chargers. I think a lot of people look at this Chargers offensive line and what happened last week. The Giants front four is outstanding. That's a great group for the New York Giants. A lot of people say, oh, this Chargers offensive line with the injuries can't function. Listen, you have big injuries in the middle of a game. You're going to have some issues. They've had a week of preparation to get ready. I think Salyer is going to be awesome at left tackle personally, and I look at this Washington front. It's not nearly as good as the Giants. Now that the Chargers have had a full week of preparation with Roman, with Harbaugh, Herbert looking for a bounce back, I think this team sends a powerful message, and I think they get their fourth win this Sunday against Washington.